I really didn't understand is like, how are some stuck and how are some able to make it out, right? Make it out of that rat race and be able to get ahead.
Anyone who was new to mobile homes, like, of course, like they would hear like certain myths and all that. And one thing I commonly hear is that, isn't paying for space rent kind of like part of like the mortgage, or where does that money go? Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, there's a lot to think about that. I could talk about this for hours. We're very proud of what we do as far as educating mobile homeowners of what their home is worth, what their home would be worth if it was a new home, and understanding the cost of upgrading their old home to new one. And with those three numbers, if you understand and collect those three numbers, you can make much smarter decisions.
Welcome to the mobile home movement, where we showcase the beauty and affordability of mobile homes. Here we break false myths and share all the positive stories of how mobile home ownership transforms lives. I'm Franco Perez, and this is the Mobile Home Movement.
What's up, guys? This is Tong, and welcome to the Mobile Home Movement. And today, I'll be your host, not Franco.
What's the first question, Tong?
Well, I've been learning a lot from you in terms of mobile homes, right? But I think a lot of us are really curious of how, what's your knowledge in real estate and how you got into the sector of mobile homes.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess it really comes down to, I think it's important to understand the real key problems that there are in real estate. I think because of, people always hear my story coming from renting to owning and that type of thing. And we all know how difficult it is to come from low income to one day owning a home. So with that, I became a huge nerd into really understanding every single element of real estate and, what are the situations that allow families to really get a step ahead, because there are families that are renting and have different mentalities and are stuck in that rental world forever. And there's other families where they're in the rental world and somehow made their way through real estate and boosted their generational wealth forever for the future.
Right.
And I was flabbergasted. I really didn't understand is like, how are some stuck and how are some able to make it out, right? Make it out of that rat race and be able to get ahead. So I deep studied understanding, okay, what are the key fundamentals of financing? What are the commonalities? What is their culture like? What are different cultures studying? What are different cultures' values when it comes to money and when it comes to home ownership and when it comes to lending and interest rates and credit and assets? What I've realized is that the difference is the beliefs and the understanding, because guess what? What is common when I was in that rat race and what is common knowledge for me in that rat race when I was low income and that type of thing, what I thought I knew about money was kind of false, and there's not just a wealth gap, but there's a information gap. And those that are making it have a different mentality, have a different set of beliefs, have a different set of morals and values, and they have different pains against how they spend money. They're not, they're in a weird way, make better decisions when it comes to money because, they have higher values in saving. They don't want, they understand that every rent payment is a negative cash flow to them. They understand assets and they think more in the future of what they can do, versus when I was low income back then. With that, I really understood that element of, mindset and that element of the difference between those that are stuck in the rat race and those that make it out of the rat race. So then I chased upon trying to figure out how can we make it easier for the low income families to be able to have more access to getting out of that low income rat race, right?
Right.
And the big it's understanding the barrier. We're either renting at a high amount or you have to purchase a home at a high amount. And that spread and that gap is causing a wealth gap between the rich and the poor. And unfortunately, it's getting worse and worse, right? So it's been my strive and my goal to bring that back and bridge that gap in between. And with that, I studied low-income housing, that type of thing. Didn't really pan out. And I realized we need to find a way to bring the elements of home ownership, because we all understand the elements of home ownership. You can leverage a loan to build up your net worth. You get appreciation of your home value. You get to build equity, right? And you're lowering the amount that's going to be a negative cash flow. So you're paying off a loan that you're on an asset that you own.
Right.
How do we bring those important values that everybody knows is important and key to getting rich? How do we bring that access to low-income families? How can we open the door of opportunity to make it easier for low-income families to get out of that rental rat race, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, I think it's important to have these Section 8 and low-income housing options where it's like reduced rent. But I also believe that we need more options to make it more available for low-income families to have ownership elements like home ownership, like home ownership. So with that, I came to realize that those big benefits of home ownership are also same elements of mobile home ownership, right? It's a different animal. However, you get the same benefits in a better way, right? Or you get the same benefits in a much more affordable cost with a lower barrier of entry.
Right.
And it's more accessible to a family that's of the working class that can't yet afford real estate. Right. So that's, I think is key.
Yeah. And actually, some of our clients as well are, one of, the agents on our team, like Rocio. I know that she got a home back like maybe 10 years ago. And of course, as the years progressed that home actually built up its equity, and which allowed her to really, sell that home and actually purchase a bigger home for her. But if she just stayed working, then it would take some time for her to progress in that aspect.
Yeah. And I think, totally. And just like with what you said, I mean, you've worked here for a while. We continuously see families get out of that rental rat race through mobile homes, right?
Right.
And that's why we're so passionate about mobile homes, is because we're creating opportunity and opening that door that we just talked about. So we know all of the real estate problems we're having. It's, high rent, low inventory, home prices are way too high in the real estate world. And with that's where we realize that, hey, there's a ton of mobile homes around. And people don't really understand it. They don't understand how it can help them. They don't understand how it's good for society. And there's a ton of false myths and false stigmas around mobile homes that people don't understand, right? So that's what we've really dove in and focused on, is first studying the people that have already been living in these mobile home parks, and then we also studied how they were able to end up with $100,000 more than they were before if they were renting versus owning a mobile home. And we see that with real life examples, people with selling because their home is appreciated for $50,000, for $100,000. And because of that, this large lump sum that they have in equity, when they sell their home, now they have more opportunities. Now they have easier access to one day being able to make better decisions or more options and decisions with whether they want to buy a home out of the area or whether they want to buy a home here, or if they have a large investment that they want to go into. Having that equity gives them more options, right?
Like, what are some, I guess if anyone who was new to mobile homes, like, of course, like, they would hear, like, certain myths and all that. And one thing I commonly hear is that, isn't paying for space rent kind of, like, part of, like, the mortgage, or where does that money go? Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, there's a lot to think about that. I could talk about this for hours, right? And I think the three things I want to talk about is, one is there's this effect that people don't realize that, everyone wants to chase the dream of home ownership one day, owning a piece of real estate, owning a single family home. But there's this unfortunate illusion that is in our society that we always chase something that might be too far away, and we forget to focus on what's the next step that will give us the next level of improvement. There's this whole effect of, hey, one day I want to own a Lamborghini. That would be great. And I love dreaming about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, how do we make a decision that's more attainable in the next year or 2 years that will get us in a better position to one day get that Lamborghini or to one day get that single family home, right? So it's not just rent and it's not just own. There's steps or rungs to the ladder in between, right? How do we improve our current cash flow to get a little bit better? And then having that access to that little bit better or that next step, that will continue to allow for us to one day reach that dream of home ownership, right? So with that being said, this is something that's very important for people to understand finances, understand cash flow. And this is something I really didn't understand when I was poor. And even my friends in my circle of influence didn't understand either. But now that I have wealthy friends and that type of thing, this is common sense. And I don't know why it wasn't that for me before. But then again, it's like that thing I talked about where it's not just a wealth gap, it's an information gap. But there's different cultures and there's different understandings, whether we believe it or not. But with that being said, hey, if you're in a full rent model and you're considering and you one day want to own real estate, but you can't yet.
Right.
Understand the actual cash flow of the mobile home payment structure. 100% rent. If you keep renting for 5 years, how much of that do you get to sell and get that money back?
From
a full rental apartment.
You don't get any.
You don't get any of it back, right? So it's it's 100% loss.
Right.
Every dollar that you put in a rental model goes away. It goes to your landlord. They get to pay off whatever they pay off.
Right.
And you get nothing back.
Right.
You leave the home with nothing. You don't get any tax benefits. You don't get any equity. It's just a harsh breakup and you're gone, right? All that money. And people don't realize the amount of money that is gone. Let's say a family of 4 pays $3,000 a month for a property. That's $35,000 a year.
Right.
Right? And every year, that's that family losing $35,000 at 100% loss.
Right.
Now, if we understand the model of mobile homes, we can look down on that space rent. We could point at that and say, that space, it sucks paying space rent. Why would I ever pay space rent? That's something that goes to the landlord. I don't own the real estate. I could say a ton of negative things. But if you actually look at the cash flow correctly, you would come to realize, guess what? Yes, you are spending $3,000 a month on a full rental model, but if you move that same model to a mobile home structure, let's say your space rent is a third of your payment, or half of your payment.
Right.
At least the other second half is going towards something that you own, something that you get to sell later down the line. You get to build your equity. You get to leverage a loan to own an asset that you own. You get tax benefits. And these mobile homes are appreciating at a fast rate too. It's the same as real estate. They have a lot of these benefits. And this is an asset that you get to sell later and have a huge amount of money back if you compare it to that family that's stuck in that $3,000 a month rent. You could still pay $3,000 a month. Right. Maybe your bank account isn't showing more money, but that doesn't mean that you're getting wealthier. That doesn't mean that your cash flow is better. We have to understand that where your money goes, yes, a third of that money is still rent, and it's going towards the mobile home park owner, right? And we can look at that in a negative way, but 2/3 of that is working towards your benefit. And whether you see it in your bank account or not, people have to understand that that's working in a better cash flow than a rental model.
Right. Yeah, especially in the Bay Area, I think like if it's a household of 4, maybe that's like one 2-bedroom, like 2-bath or something, close to like $4,000. But with the mobile home, like what I majority see, it's like there's double wides and there's like 3 bedrooms inside, and like the rent, it's like around like 2,000 up and down. But then if it was just for like an apartment unit, which is even with low income housing as well, that would be like kind of 1/3 or even half more. But with that extra amount, it could be, let's say, put into somewhere else, but also with their home as well. Like if they were to buy a mobile home.
Yeah. So you touched on the space rent element and what people have to say about it being negative. I think the other part of it is understanding like, hey, we don't look at condos or some townhouses as being a huge negative at ownership as well, right? Condos and townhouses are cheaper than single family homes, but one of the flaws in our area and other areas too is that there is an HOA, right? So people don't realize that's also an automatic negative, right? I know people with apartments or condos that are paying $400 on HOA, right? So it's really understanding the balancing act. Hey, let's say single family homes are 1.5, a condo is 1 million, but you're paying a high HOA of 350 or 400, right? So pick your poison, but they're both an improvement from the full rental model. If you can upgrade immediately from renting to a condo, go for it, do it. But you still have a negative HOA, which is still fine. But I'd compare that to the relativity of mobile homes. You know, you pay a space rent too, right? But don't hold back from buying a mobile home just because you feel that one day I'm going to have a boost of income and I'll be able to buy a condo or I'll be able to buy a piece of real estate. The people that are advancing in their wealth from low income are making these decisions earlier to better their cash flow earlier so that their current cash flow is better and to be able to one day. Because a lot of us have this belief that one day homes are going to go drop in prices or my income's going to one day be able to afford one day, right? And it's a lot of these one day thoughts, but with that, it causes for us to sometimes not take action and be paralyzed. And with that, the world of real estate, unfortunately, is not getting better. It's harder to build housing. These home prices are getting more expensive than our salary actually is going. Right. So it's important that we understand that and take action to get ourselves up that rung of ladder to get a better cash flow. And to describe those rungs, it's like, hey, full rental is kind of like whether it's a pretty apartment or a nice home and that type of thing, it's a bad model to be paying rent fully. But with that, let's call single family home ownership at the top of that ladder. You know, I would say, didn't describe it, a mobile home, an old mobile home, an old affordable mobile home, and then you can upgrade your old affordable mobile home to build a brand new higher equity mobile home. And then from there, you can graduate to sell to maybe a condo or a townhouse. And then you can graduate and sell that to a piece of single family home, right? And when you do it in those small step scenarios, it allows it to be easier than just relying on your career and your career only, right? So with that, and understanding those steps of graduation up the process, you're able to actually make these levels of improvement in your cash flow. And in the end, whether you see it in your bank account or not, you have equity and you have an asset that you own that you can sell. And you have a better cash flow as well. And that's key.
I think like that stepping stone or like with loans and the tax benefits, I don't think even some homeowners, like mobile home owners, they actually know about that. And I think that's something that I think we could dive into next time. It would be a great topic.
I mean, you could dive into it now if you'd like. But yeah, I think the other thing that I want to bring up is, you know, there's a constant battle between, I know we talked about like mentalities, and I'm going to talk personally with me. there's a constant battle, and we talk about subcultures and different cultures and how some are exceeding and graduating up that wealth ladder and some aren't, right? But one of the things I realize is that those that are advancing are super humble and not materialistic and not as flashy or not as concerned about what it is my family or my friends see me as successful. Because you see a lot of, from my understanding, my family, my friends and that type of thing, they feel I'm successful because I got a new car. Cool. I get to show off my new car, right? I know it's funny, but I want to, it's very delicate because it is a real thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's the battle between how do I look good now versus look good in 5 years.
Like that, right? Delayed gratification in
delayed gratification. But, it's important that we see that because I realized that myself. I realized that, wow, how is this guy driving a 1996 Camry, but they have like $100,000 in their account and making good money, right? But, it's typically an immigrant family that's super humble. They save well. They're more about the financial security because they want to support their family. And when they have that mental understanding of doing that, this is what's allowing families to be able to graduate. I'm not saying people have to be super frugal, have to have really ugly cars, but we have to understand there's a spectrum. And sometimes we have to understand where we're at in that spectrum. Are we living at our means, or are we living above our means, or are we living below our means? Right. And that spectrum allows for us to advance faster. And sometimes you really social pressure of your family or your parents or your friends is very important. And I don't want to laugh at that at all because to some people that's really, really important to them. But the opposite spectrum of that is if you're okay with not looking good initially, and if you're okay with having delayed gratification, if you can go further along that spectrum, whether it's a middle point or all the way to the extreme, this is what's allowing people to get ahead at a faster rate, right? Hey, I don't need to eat out all the time. I don't need a nice Tesla right now. I don't need to be living in a very modern apartment and a comfortable apartment now, so that later down the line when I choose to grow my family and that type of thing, I am more financially secure and I'm able to buy that Tesla later. Right. I'm able to get that piece of home ownership later. But it's holding back from these temptations of materialistic wants, and it's holding back from that chase of social pressure that is allowing a lot of these families to graduate up that ladder of wealth.
Right. I totally agree with that. I recently watched some videos on finances as well, and of course that like social pressure and social expectations is something that's really difficult to, I guess, get our foot like out of, because we've grown up in that setting. Like in school, we would be comparing our grades, and then after we graduate, we'll be comparing, what career do you have? What's that, title you have? And later on, it will be, which area do you buy your house in? That's something that we can get away. But what else I observe is that with a lot of young people, maybe they do have they're half in that mindset of delayed gratification. But what advice will you give to those people who they aren't sure which route to take that would, for them to delay, but on the same time be on track to, let's say, their goal in the future?
Yeah. I think the first step is taking the time to realize what your current mentality is like. And then, understanding, okay, am I spending more than I need to? Because we also have to understand who our enemy is. Let's say I'm a low-income family. Who our enemy is the retail market that fight every day to try to get us to spend the most money with them. And who is that? That's the car salespeople, the car industry, the apartment industry, the housing industry. These are all the evils that really want to take money from the consumer, and they're building this media element that want us to spend more, to want to boost the economy in that way. But that's kind of like, we have to understand and separate ourselves from those temptations. And it's so hard. It's so hard when you see your friends on social media, like, I got a new car,
right,
or like, I got a home, right? It's like, man, am I not enough? Am I not doing good enough? Why are they in that position and I'm not, right? And there's a lot of, we can talk about that another time as well. So I guess it's that, and understanding that, it's very easy. These retail companies are trained and have all the resources to mess with your emotions to try to impulsively buy their product, right? Or rent that apartment, right? So it always, like, you tour an apartment building, they give you the best tour ever. You have all this sense of emotions, like, wow, I would feel good about myself. I have this pool to be able to lounge. How cool would it be to invite my friends over for a party if I rented this apartment? It's very tempting, and it's designed to be tempting to go for this huge rental payment. But we have to understand that it's their job and their role, and it's their incentive to try to get us attracted to that. But if you can control that and separate yourself from their sales and marketing tactic, and really understand your cash flow and your priorities for yourself, you can make better decisions, right? Maybe, I don't need that right now. I can still save, or I can still live with my parents for a bit, or live a little bit more below my means so that I have more options and opportunity later. These are things and decisions that I would consider as a young person that's of low income or middle class, right? It's understanding that. First, understanding, is this a temptation? And then when you're making these large decisions, like, am I going to rent this year? Or am I going to buy something this year? Or am I going to live with my parents? Don't just think for the now, but think what's going to be a decision that's going to help you 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And as hard as it is, it's really hard to think about that when I can barely afford 6 months, or I don't have that much of a bank account. But the sooner you start planning and thinking about what would future Tong want from now, and delaying that gratification for you in the now, the more you do that, the easier it will be to be able to graduate yourself to a better cash flow.
How do you balance between, let's say, delaying the gratification, but because of course you could work so hard, but you need your time to, let's say, de-stress or go on a trip or something like that. So what was it like for you when you first got, I guess, started in real estate, where I'm pretty sure you were someone who's like all delay gratification to, what you have now. But how do you find that balance for yourself?
It's hard to explain that, but I think what's fascinating is, I think it's first understanding that, when I really studied who's advancing and who's not, right? From out of low income, who are those people that are getting out of low income and advancing and graduating their wealth? What I've realized is that those people have faced some sort of adversity in their past, whether it's an immigrant family or whether it's losing my parents and having to just survive. And it's those that have faced huge problems, and this is a strong thing that they have to fix. And with that, that's allowing for people to have that drive and more energy to want to do that. And when you face that adversity, everything else, you're more focused. Everything else is just noise. I don't really care about what people think anymore because I'm in survival mode. I don't really care about what car I drive because I've seen the lowest of the low, and I don't ever want to go there again. So, but I'm not saying that if you haven't hit that adversity that it can't be you, right? But I guess with that being said, it's understanding what's your drive, what is your why, and making the decision, I'll be honest, what we have to understand is like 80% of our decisions actually really don't matter. But there's some key 20% decisions in our lives that really do matter, right? So what are they? Like our choices in housing, our career choices, how we change our decision making, right? It's those tweaks, the habits that really change who we are, right? And I say this because, looking at your finances and realizing, hey, I'm eating out too much a month. And if I just make that tweak of just eating, instead of eating out 4 times a week, I eat out once a week. And making that decision will help you get ahead. But also with that, I want to say that there's families out there like that shock me, like Feng's story, who we did on our podcast.
Right.
Feng, very low income, lived in a single wide mobile home and grew to one day owning his large barber shop. But I remember this I literally see him every 3 weeks because I get my hair cut from him. But I see him grow financially. I see him making more money, and I know for a fact he's making more money. And I'm like, Feng, take a break, take a vacation, buy a Tesla. Why don't you buy a Tesla? But no, Feng held his ground. Even though I see him making more money, he was still living in this single wide home with 4 people in this single wide mobile home. And I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I'm like, Feng, I know for a fact you're making a lot more money. Why are you still living here? Whereas old me would have been like, oh, I got a raise, I'm going to buy another car. Oh, I got this much in my account, I'm going to eat out more. Right? But as humble and hard working as Feng is, there's something in his brain that makes more sense of saving and making smarter financial decisions. And I can't yet put to words on how to explain that, but
I think the word is it's called responsibility, because I remember like he's the first one of his siblings to come to America, and he has the responsibility to immigrate them here. And of course, with that, he also needs to save up for a bigger house because, he's the oldest one here. So he sets that example.
That's
so
a good point.
Yeah, the responsibility as well, like, because you're the older brother of your family as well. So yeah, Gabby, she looks up to you as older brother. So you would have that responsibility to, do great in your career and be able to set that example for her.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And yeah, that's a great point. But that's a great point. And what's interesting is that we have to understand everyone's different. Everyone has a different psychology. Everyone has different values and what's important to them. But we also have to, point at who do we look up to? Who do we want to be? How do we change who we are a little bit to be able to get to where we want to be, right? And Feng was an inspiration to me, and I think a blessing to me, because it made me realize that, money isn't everything. Buying a car or showing the world how, and I see this so much in the Vietnamese culture, like Feng's. I see this story all the time where, like you said, Feng is responsible for immigrating his family from Vietnam here. And that's his high value, and that's his why, and because of the importance of that, he doesn't tap into those
instant gratifications. He
doesn't tap into the instant gratification. He doesn't tap into the temptation that I pressure him. He doesn't buy into the temptation that even I was giving him to, like, hey, you should get a new car. Hey, you should get a new home. Hey, you should do this. But he was so focused on helping his family and supporting his family financially. He didn't care about looking good. He cared about how his bank account was going to be so that he could help his family move. And it was that allowed for him to now have a successful barber business, a full salon, and now he owns a large single-family home in Blossom Hill, and he helped immigrate his brother here. And such a great story. But it was that as a delay. It's a perfect example of a delayed gratification mindset that he thought years ahead, 5 years ahead, and always made his decisions on that goal. But most of us have a shorter time frame of how we make decisions. You know, I want to get this new car, but is that new car going to be cool for the rest of your life? Or is that car only cool for 6 months to a year, right?
Right.
Maybe I should get a more modest car that will hold its value, so when I sell it in a year, I can upgrade it later. It's decisions like that that allow us to be able to advance. And I wish I knew that when I was younger. I wish I knew that earlier on, because I fought those temptations, and maybe I do even now. But there's nothing wrong with having those temptations and going for it. But if your goal is to advance and you want to know how to, understand that that's a big part of it.
Right. Yeah, it's like knowing your goal. I think there's goods between delayed gratification and instant gratification, because sometimes we need that instant gratification to move forward longer. And with delaying the gratification, then we're able to reach, let's say, higher goals if that's what we're shooting for. But on both sides of the spectrum, it depends on our goals, and we also taking, like, let's say, whatever consequences that it gives us at the end of, as well, whether it's delaying a long-term goal that we have. Yeah. So I know that you've been in the industry for quite a while. What brought that idea to you of turning, these old 1970s homes into, newer mobile homes right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so key that we understand the scope of the problem, like I keep bringing up, and understanding that. And yes, we did a ton of mobile home work, helping people get in and out of mobile homes and keeping their value. But then I came to realize that there's a ton, what we're doing is taking a ton of this real estate knowledge that's done in practical single family real estate and bringing it to the mobile home world, right? So with that, we can understand that, hey, there's a home with a large lot that is worth $1 million. If they put a second ADU unit, they could spend $300,000 and their value of their home can go up $700,000, right? How do we use that same model and bring it to a smaller scale and similar to mobile homes?
Right.
So guess what? These mobile homes were mostly built in the 70s, and the homes themselves were also built in the 70s. And in the 70s, housing wasn't a huge problem. It wasn't super populated, and it wasn't dense, right?
Right.
So a lot of these homes are older, single-wide homes or smaller homes, because that wasn't a big priority back then.
Right.
Or you'll have homes with large porches, because that's what people back then used to love, porches. And they still do now.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that. But now that we understand the problem, how do we maximize? Because you mentioned this too. They don't own the land,
right,
but they own the rights to that lot. Right. So because they have this home with a bit of a yard, how do we maximize the value of their asset of an old mobile home, similar to the situation I said earlier? How do we do that with their old mobile home? And it's quite simple. It's understanding adding the livable square footage so we can have a more comfortable space and maybe house more people. So we always see families that have kids in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath home. Their kids want rooms and that type of thing, but they can't yet own a piece of real estate because they're not in that financial position yet.
Right.
But guess what? We've created a new model that allows for them to stay in that same place that they live, have the same address, but maximizing their asset of that mobile home lot.
Right.
Even though they don't own the lot, they have the rights to that, which is key in a location sense. So we help them understand that, hey, you have a 900 square feet. Sorry. Hey, you have a 900 square foot mobile home right now. However, if you don't have a place to move to yet, we can help you convert this old 900 square foot home to a large 1,500 square foot home because your lot can fit it. And we can do that for you. And in the end, you could spend $250,000 doing that. But guess what? Your asset and your equity, your new future home value is now going to be $350,000. So some people might look at it as an expense, but if you look at it as an investor standpoint, they can understand that I can spend this $250,000, I can spread it out on a loan, and I can improve my family's current lifestyle, giving them the room that they want, upping the quality of the home itself, having drywall, full insulation, having a nice kitchen that I want.
Right.
While still making it a smart investment for them to make that spend, because in the end, when they choose to move out of that home, this is an asset with equity that they can sell for more than they would have been able to get in the old home style situation.
Right.
And it's helping mobile home owners understand that they can maximize the lot that they have, convert their old mobile home to a new one, up their living lifestyle, add square footage, have a nice quality, great life, while still making it a better financial decision.
Right.
And with that, it's such an amazing, it's such a beautiful thing, because it's a win-win in so many cases. And it's a win for the resident. It's a win for us as a company because we got to help them out. It's also a win for the park because they have a nicer home in their community. And it's a win for the neighbors around too, because the values of the neighbors are starting to go up too, because it's a nicer home. It's an easier to maintain home.
Right.
And, I can list off so many benefits, but utility bills, it's better for fire safety. These old mobile homes can go catch on fire so quick, but the new level of construction is fire is better. And, but we can go on and on about that. But the key is understanding understanding what is an expense and what's an investment. And in so many ways, upgrading somebody that owns an old mobile home, in so many ways, it's a better investment than it is a spend. And if we understand that it's not a negative spend, hey, you can put a down payment on this, but guess what? That down payment is still your money, even though it's not in your bank account. This is something you own. This is your equity, right? It might not be as liquid, but when you sell later, you get that money back. And this is how the rich understand real estate and how they're able to grow wealthy. And it's important to me to educate more people to understand these elements of thought. Right. Because most people, in my thoughts before, was like, if it's not going to my bank account, why would I make that decision? Right. Right.
On that same topic, there might be some owners that have a 1970s home who do want to do an upgrade, but they just don't know where to get started. So upon that, what are some tips you have for them?
I guess it's first understanding and realizing, what is the value of their home and what is the profile. I mean, we designed a full system to help mobile homeowners understand what would make the best decision. And it's kind of, I don't want to sell on this podcast, but, we're very proud of what we do as far as educating mobile homeowners of what their home is worth, what their home would be worth if it was a new home, and understanding the cost of upgrading their old home to new one. And with those three numbers, if you understand and collect those three numbers, you can make much smarter decisions. And that's exactly what we designed, is the process for a mobile homeowner to be able to come to us, hey, we're considering doing an upgrade. What's our next step? Well, first we do a consultation of understanding the value of your mobile home, and then we measure the lot of your mobile home, and then we evaluate what it would cost to upgrade your old mobile home to new. And we do all of that within a 20-minute session at their home, right? So we started showing you that, right? You did the measurement for your first time or whatever. I guess with my hate for sales, I always teach our team not to sell, and I'm passionate about that, but I'm very big on education. So it's important to us that we provide areas where we can educate homeowners and mobile homeowners. So, with that, we have a system where we measure their lot, we evaluate what their current home worth is, and then we evaluate what their new home worth is and how much it would cost to do that. And with that quick consultation where we check the home for 20 minutes, take photos, we look at comps of similar new homes that have sold, old homes that have sold, and then we measure the lot and see what's the best scenario that would up their value the most as far as a new home goes.
Right.
And then with that consultation, we let them know, hey, this is what we can fit. This is what we can fit as a new home in here. This is what the new home's value is going to be. And then we let them sit with that information so they can really understand it and make that decision later. And for many people, it's not the right decision at the time yet. But knowing that allows for them to have something to look forward to save money as for the down payment for that, so that they can up their level of lifestyle and up their equity and up their wealth and do that one day. And that's key for us, is to have these opportunities to educate more mobile homeowners through our YouTube channel, through our podcast, or doing it in person, to allow for more people to realize that this is a perfect way to put yourself in a better financial situation. And so you asked on how to start. It's really that first consultation of finding out.
Wow, that was great. Like, I would love to go into more of that in our next show, of really like what that process looks like, so people know more about it. But unfortunately, we got to end here today. But check out our next show.